My name is Jonah Jonathan, and welcome once again to the Jazz Musician's Voice. Today I have the wonderful opportunity to present for you an interview I conducted with tenor saxophonist Ralph Lalama. Ralph Lalama is a true jazz veteran, and he's been on the New York scene for well over 40 years. Most recently, he has been a tenor saxophonist with the Vanguard Jazz Orchestra for 30 years. We sat down in his house in Yonkers, New York to talk about his life and the music. In addition to being a busy musician, Ralph Lalama is a busy educator, and he works with many different universities, including N.Y.U and Suny Purchase. The music of the Vanguard Jazz Orchestra is incredibly difficult, and one should really appreciate how great of a saxophonist Ralph Lalama is. And he's also a great band leader in his own right, and he works all throughout the world. So please try to check out the Vanguard Jazz Orchestra. They're playing usually at the Vanguard every Monday night, or you can find some of their recordings. They've got some really fantastic stuff out there. Or, see if you can find some of Ralph Lalama's shows around the city, sometimes at Smalls Jazz Club, for example. So check him out. Ralph Lalama, one of the most established cats on the New York scene. Ladies and gentlemen, today I have the wonderful opportunity to interview saxophonist Ralph Lalama. Now, Ralph, I understand you were raised with parents who are both musicians. Can you tell us a little bit about where you are from and your early exposure to music?
Yeah, well, I'm from West Aliquippa, Pennsylvania. It's near Pittsburgh, okay? It was a steel town, blue collar. And then like you said, my parents were both musicians. My father was a drummer. My mother was a vocalist. And we had music in the family, since I could remember. Mostly jazz. The only rock and roll that was in our house was because of me. But my father and mother listened to, my mother was a singer, so she used to listen to Ella and Doris Day and, all the great singers. And my father was a drummer. And we used to listen to like Sonny Stitt and Gene Ammons and Stan Getz and big bands,
Excellent.
So I grew up with that in the air, And then my grandfather was an alto player, clarinet player, and he gave me my first clarinet when I was 9. Then I started taking lessons on the clarinet. And then I remember getting a saxophone when I was 14. It was under the Christmas tree. And then I, started trying to play that. So that's basically it. And then my brother was 3 years younger than me, and he was a piano player. He started off on trumpet, but that didn't work. And he started getting into the piano, and the rest is history.
Wow.
So we had a very musical situation.
Yeah, and so maybe it was a little calculated, your parents getting you a saxophone for you to become a saxophone player.
Yeah, no, it was great. Well, I always liked the saxophone, and we listened to saxophone. We listened to Benny Goodman and Artie Shaw and stuff, but it was, it's like I said, Sonny Stitt and Gene Ammons and Stan Getz and those guys. So it was like, whoa, it was just, and then like I said, and even my first guy that I really liked as a kid, other than jazz guy, was Maceo, because I used to listen to a lot of James Brown music for myself, And, I used to even play that kind of stuff when I was a kid. We had a band since I was 14. We had a band and we worked, in the clubs and stuff.
So, from being in a small town, what was your kind of push into New York and the New York scene? You must have attended school for music, right?
Yeah, I went to Youngstown State University. And that was the best thing I ever did, because I met this guy, Tony Leonardi, who was from upstate New York, and he played bass with Woody Herman. And he grew up with people like Sal Nistico, not Sammy Nestico, but Sal Nistico, a great tenor player, and other people too. But anyway, so he really, I was a clarinet major at Youngstown. I wasn't a saxophone major. I was a classical clarinet major, just thinking I was going to graduate, maybe go back to Pittsburgh, go stay, playing groups, maybe teach high school, Yeah. I never really thought I was going to do it, but that's what I was kind of programming myself to do. But I met Tony Leonardi, and then he turned me on to like Sonny Rollins, Coltrane, all these guys. And I was listening. I said, whoa, Then we played in the band. I played in the only jazz class they had at Youngstown State University at that time was a jazz ensemble that he started. Okay. And then, so I after my sophomore year, I auditioned, and I got the gig, and then it started really getting really serious about practicing and learning, from the masters,
Yeah, yeah. Well, so you arrived in New York in '75, I believe, right?
Yeah.
What was the real thing that pushed you to come to New York? Okay. At that time?
Well, it goes back to Youngstown. Our last concert, when we played, at Youngstown State University with the jazz band, it featured Thad Jones, and that was my last semester, last concert with the band, the YSU Jazz Ensemble, and so I met Thad Jones. He was there a couple days, so I got to know him a little bit, and then we played a little quintet, with Tony playing bass, and and basically the students on the rhythm section, and myself and Thad. So I said, whoa, and then like I said, I get to actually I had the day before on the day of the concert, I picked him up at the hotel to bring him to the school, for their concert, and he said, oh, come on in. I went there, and there was this chart laying all over the bed. It was number 77 in the book, A Little Rascal on the Rock. I said, Dad, what's this? He goes, blah, 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 it's A Little Rascal on the Rock. It's half done, okay? So little did I know that a couple of years later, I'm going to be playing this chart, number 77.
Yeah.
And he finished it, all these things. So anyway, that's why actually, what he said was, if you're serious about this kind of stuff, you should move to New York. He encouraged me, I said, yeah, I'm kind of serious, So I did. I moved to New York, and about 3 weeks later, I called him. I said, Dad, I thought he was going to say, yeah, who, what, who? He said, oh, Ralph, yeah. I said, oh, okay. It was nice, very, very inviting. And he said, I got a gig at William Patterson with Mel and George Mraz and Walter North. You want to play? I said, I don't even know how to get there. I was moving to, so I figured that out, and I played 3 nights with him. With Thad and Mel and George Mraz and Walter North, and that was the band at the time. It wasn't a big band; it was a small group. So that really knocked me out because I was just happy they played a tune I ever heard of, let alone knew.
Yeah. Well, your arrival in New York, you came at a time when, traditional jazz was still kind of going downhill in popularity. It was more of like the fusion era. At that time. What was the scene like for you? I mean, were you more part of the big band or the loft scene, or what was going on for you when you were first arriving in New York?
All of the above. Like I said, after I played with Thad in the small group, I subbed in his band a couple times, And then there was a loft scene. I remember the Jazz Mania Society. That was on 23rd Street. Where I would go and jam like once or twice a week, and then you meet people, and you said about the fusion thing. That was true, but underlining that, there was a lot of people that were into playing, tunes and stuff, like there is now, and there's a lot of kids growing into that scene. It's not always just what's popular,
Yeah.
But anyway, that's kind of how that happened.
Well, great. So as a saxophonist, you were really fortunate to work with some great names. You worked with the Woody Herman Orchestra,
right.
Buddy Rich, and then the Thad Jones, Mel Lewis Orchestra, and now the Vanguard Orchestra.
Right.
So tell us a little bit about playing with big bands and some of the things you might have learned from some of these masters.
Well, as a saxophone player, just sitting in the saxophone section, it's a lot of discipline, especially playing the tenor. You're not the lead guy, so you have to listen to the lead alto, and you have to really like, blend, and intonation, And then after all that, you're sitting there doing all that, and then you have to stand up and play. I mean, it's not like playing in a small group, which most of us prefer as soloists, to be honest, But still, this discipline really helps that other discipline because, you learn how to play your saxophone, You know what I mean? And that's what happened with Woody and Buddy and playing. And, I wasn't in Thad and Mel as a regular. I was just a sub at the time. Then I left because I was with Woody and Buddy. Then when I came back, it was just the Mal Lewis Orchestra. And then that's when I finally got in as a regular in the early 80s. And that was a good saxophone section. That was like with Lovano and Ted Nash, Dick Oates, Smolian, and that's it. Yeah.
What would be some of the things that you guys as a saxophone section talked about? I assume you guys hung out as peers, Yeah. What would be some things you guys would be talking about as young players at that time?
Well, as far as the music was concerned, playing together, articulating together, balance in the saxophone section, And, our leader was Dick Oates as far as he plays lead alto, so, he did a lot of suggestions. And, and we just did it every Monday. That was a good thing about playing in the Vanguard band, or at that time the N.Y.U Jazz Orchestra, was that, you get to do it every Monday. So it wasn't just like, once every alternate leap year.
Yeah.
It was like, so that you form, the things happen, and, every week you try to get better, Because everybody was serious, serious guys, And we grew as a section, we grew as improvisers too, I think, from listening to each other. Even now, it's the same way now with Richie Perry, Billy Drews, and me, Oates, and Gary Smolin. I enjoy going to the gig just to listen to everybody else. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, if you could, describe for us what the Vanguard was like back then, the club, the venue, as compared to today. Was there a lot of differences in the club, in the atmosphere?
No.
It's like still
the same.
Yeah,
it's in the basement. It's it's a lot of history in this, but you feel the history when you walk down there. And one good thing I like about it too is the sound in the room. I mean, I played there in small groups too, smaller groups, and I played in a big band. And actually, when we go out on the road with the Vanguard band, there's such a difference in sound. We're so used to that sound in that room. But as far as the feeling of it, it's the same to me. I don't see, other than you can't smoke there anymore. That changed a long time ago.
Yeah,
what I mean? That's the only change that I think of.
So now, with the Vanguard Orchestra, you've been playing with the orchestra for well over 30 years. The current, and you guys are, touring around the world. You're playing many different gigs and teaching with the orchestra. What are some of your favorite projects with the Vanguard Orchestra?
I mean, every time we do a new CD, that's usually a project.
Yeah.
I mean, favorites. I'm not really into like favorites. I really it's whatever it is, you deal with it. And you try to do your best at it, hopefully everybody feels the same, which they usually do. And I mean, favorites, I enjoy going to Japan, 'cause that's like, that's like incredible as far as the audiences and stuff, and they really appreciate you, And, and I like playing the Vanguard. One thing about the Vanguard, it's packed every Monday. Like you said, I've been there for 30-some years, and it's every Monday the sets are sold out,
Yeah.
It's like, it's a different thing when they're not sold out. That's not the norm, So, I mean, the word favorite, I don't know what that, exactly means.
Yeah. Well, So you mentioned Joe Lovano,
Yeah.
you know, as a member of your group, and you worked with him in smaller groups as well, right? The Nonet, Joe Lovano.
Oh yeah, his
Nonet.
non-net, sure.
So what could you say a little bit about your relationship with Joe Lovano?
Well, basically we're like brothers. I hate him and he hates me. It's like brotherly love, hate. No. Well, I'm not. I mean, I don't know how to say it. We're both Italian, you know. And I met Lovano in Woody Herman's band. I met him a little bit before that, but it wasn't really that serious because I used to go to this club in Cleveland where he's from. When I went to Youngstown, it was called the Smiling Dog Saloon, and they had great people. They had like Stan Getz, their Stitt, Art Blakey's band, Freddie Hubbard, Miles with the Wah Wah, and Chick and Herbie and Elvin with Steve Grossman and Lehman. So I used to go to this club, and Lovano sometimes would be the opening act, you know, with some guys from Cleveland, local band. So I got to hear him and know him, you know, a little bit. But then we really became close when I got on Woody's band because he was already there, you know. And then we started, you know, we just like forever. We played in that band, and then we played other gigs, you know, just other gigs. Me and him, just two tenors, and you know, in rhythm section, you know. And then, of course, played in the N.Y.U Jazz Orchestra for about 10 years. Because then, when I got on the band, and about 10 years went by, and then he finally got off, you know. And then his non-net. And Lovano's just, you know, Lovano has a big appetite for music. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He does. And that's what I like about him. That's why we kind of became brothers. You know what I mean? Because I'm the same way. His father was a tenor player. My father was a drummer. You know, my mother was a singer. So you know, we had that. He grew up the same way as far as, you know, the music was always around. It wasn't like, you know, it wasn't like probably. I know when I was a kid, it kind of came first. You know, if you had to cut the grass and you know, I had a rehearsal, I cut the grass after the rehearsal. You know, a lot of my friends, they would have to, oh, I can't come, I got to cut the grass. You know what I mean? No. You know, and I think he grew up the same way. You know what I mean? So we had a bond that way, you know. And to this day, we still have a bond. We still, you know, we hang out, we talk, you know. But he's just, and he's a loving guy. He's just, you know, very open.
Yeah.
You know, it's the way he plays. It's the way he plays. You know.
Well, thanks for going into that. And could you talk to us a little bit about working as a sideman? You've played with many musicians and also, you know, singers. You know, you got like Nancy Wilson, Carmen McRae. And,
oh yeah, that was with the band, with the Mel's band. Yeah. Yeah.
So, talk a little bit about, for young players who want to know about tenor sax or as a saxophone, what it takes to be a good sideman.
Okay. Well, for one, you got to know your instrument. You know, you got to know your instrument. You know, and we have to listen. You know, but if you're a sideman, that doesn't mean you can't project your personality. You can, but you got to know when to project your personality. You know what I mean? You can't just like, you know, especially if you're playing the saxophone section, you can't just play louder than everybody else, which I used to do sometimes. but you know, but like, you know, you gotta listen. You gotta blend. You know, and it's the same with your personality too. Yeah, we'll get into some of the business. Like, you know, nobody wants to hang around negativity all the time. You know, you should be try to be a positive human being. You know, I mean, I'm not saying don't be yourself. If you're in a bad mood, you're in a bad mood. But still, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about this year, you know, you don't want to come to the gig complaining all the time, you know. You know, oh, this poor me, I'm a victim, you know. I mean, you know, that happens to people, and that's all right. But when it's just your MO, you know, it's like, you know, everybody has their own problems, you know. And you know, just business-wise, you want to get along, just be cool, you know, and you know. But like I said, you don't want to be a prostitute though either. You know, somebody stepping on you, especially me. I'm from Aliquippa, man. You know, somebody steps on me, I don't let you know.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
You know what I mean? So like the point of it is that, you know, it's just use common sense, and you know, and play. You know, in other words, what am I trying to say? Like, be accountable and be responsible. both in the music, in your personal, thing, as far as, don't be late all the time, I mean, this is New York. Sometimes you'll be late because you never know traffic or what. But I'm not talking about. I'm talking about your MO. Shouldn't you're always late?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're not going to get along that well. Because there's another in New York. There's another guy that could take your place. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Yeah. So that's not too intelligent to be like that.
Mm-hmm. Well, you mentioned the business aspect. So, as a tenor player, you are a very busy player on the scene in New York, in a time where it's challenging for young musicians to really make it. What would be some more of your suggestions for somebody who really is eager to make it on the scene in New York and the world?
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you're in New York, you should hang out. I think the term these days is network, but not just network through the social media, but network also by being there. Go hear people play. Sit in. Sometimes sitting in is a little different these days. Everybody always, when they're playing now, everybody seems to have like they have a project, and they don't let guys sit in. When I first came, if I saw a friend of mine, I said, "Come on, play last tune or play a tune," You know what I mean? Play a couple tunes, whatever. Now it's a little different, but still, you can still hang out and listen to people. For one, you learn a lot. For two, people when they see your face, they remember you. You know what I mean? I know they can remember you on Facebook and stuff. I realize, but I don't know. I think it's a little deeper in the flesh. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Just like when you're dealing with Best Buy, I would rather talk to a person than a robot lady.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
On a computer.
You get more done faster. And you know what I mean? I know that's the way the world is. I'm not trying to be like, negative. I'm just trying to say, we're still human beings here, You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. We make it work, So when you get to the gig, your robot lady's not going to play for you. You're going to play. You know what I mean? So, Well, but the social media is kind of hip in a way, though, too.
Yeah, I mean, there's pluses and minuses.
No, that's not true. Pluses and minuses, right.
Yeah.
And you're asking me how to get a relationship and how to come in New York and
come and hang.
And be a part of it,
So, as a player, have you done much session work, like in other genres or even in jazz, or are you now basically doing the Vanguard and the work that you want to do? I'm just talking for like young players. Would you recommend they get into the session scene?
What do you mean by session? You mean commercial session?
Yeah, commercial and
I did a little bit of that.
A little of that stuff.
Commercials. I mean, little commercials like I remember I did something for Amtrak once. You got to know those people though too. That's another. Whatever you want to go, you want to play Broadway, you want to go do that commercial, like you're talking about. You want to play in the big bands, you want to play in the small. Whatever you want to do, you should hang out in those classrooms, so to speak. Mm-hmm. Even though they're not classrooms, you know what I mean. You should that's what I see. Let people know who you are, and what you want to do.
Most definitely.
So
now, I want to talk. You're a very established educator. You're on the scene at N.Y.U and Purchase and many different colleges. So, what do you think about the music in schools and going to school for jazz? And do you recommend that, or do you recommend more of finding private teachers and doing that route? Or what would you say about music programs in school, especially jazz?
Okay, well, that's a loaded question. Okay?
Yeah.
I think you should do both. I mean, the good thing about school is you're there. It's almost like networking because you're with classmates. And I know even back then when I graduated Youngstown, a lot of the guys came to New York, and then, you give each other gigs and stuff too, because you went to school with somebody, you know what I mean? Or you played in that band. It's all about, like I said, it's all about knowing people and stuff. But as far as the education is concerned, but you can learn from anybody at any time, if it's on the street or if it's in the classroom. You know what I mean? And the only thing that bothers me sometimes, what I hear from younger players, is that a lot of them have their instruments together, but they don't tell stories with their instrument. You know what I mean? I just hear a bunch of rambling, and I mean, they're good at it. I mean, what they're good at is the technical thing, But the feeling of it sometimes is a little too stiff for me, and the story they tell, it's non-existent. You know what I mean? Not everybody. There's some great young guys, believe me. I'm not, but you're asking me a general question. I'm giving you a general answer.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I'm blaming that on school, but because like I said, it's not about the school. I mean, if you're playing, if you're a student, you get what you get, and you practice or you don't practice, You know what I mean? So like, it's not really, it has to do with the school, It's, I mean, they give you the knowledge, now what you do with it, So that, and then, but then on the street, you could get into like, well, you meet it's different on the street, because it's really like you're almost like on a survival mode on the street. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's a different thing.
It's a different thing, But I mean, I'm surely not going to put down schools, but I'm just saying from that, from what I hear today and a lot of things, I don't hear, they don't talk about getting your story together. They talk about getting your scale together, your scales and stuff, which is important. Of course. I'm not saying don't do that, No, I'm not saying that at all. But you got to know how to make a story out of it, creative, And I'm a big proponent of learning from the masters. A lot of people aren't, and I'm not saying be a clone. I'm saying be a disciple. You know what
Absolutely,
I mean? Yeah. Be a disciple, and then look, if you have the talent to be a innovator, you will be. You know what I mean? And if you don't have the talent to be an innovator, you're going to be a good player. So it's a no-lose situation.
Yeah.
So some students will say, "Well, man, I don't want to play that stuff. I want to be myself." Well, my man, yourself right now isn't good enough.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I just try. As a teacher, I just try to tell the truth.
Sure. Well, as a horn player, and you're coming kind of from more of the generation of having a mentor who can really teach you. Who would be the main people you studied with privately, or did you study much privately with jazz people?
No, I just studied. When I moved to New York, I took one lesson on the sax. I took clarinet lessons in college. I took one lesson with Frank Foster when I moved to New York. He was in the band and stuff, and I know him a little bit. I said, "Frank, come on up I went up this pad in Scarsdale, actually. And I had one lesson. That was it. Everything else was records and playing with people, and hearing people going out and listening to George Coleman, Clifford Jordan, Junior Cook, and the other guys, Stan Getz, the guys that were my heroes at the time, Yeah, And then, like I said, me and Lovano used to hang out. We used to play. He had a loft on 23rd Street. We used to play almost every day. We were playing. Different guys would come and play with us, and, we would play duo if nobody showed up. You know what I mean? So we played all the time, That's one good thing about New York. There's a lot of teachers out there that, by that, I mean, when you go play with them, you can learn from,
Absolutely. So, one of the things that people particularly enjoy learning from older guys on this series is that they have stories to share, like juicy stories about guys that aren't around anymore. Do you have any interesting stories working with some of these musicians or working on the road that you could recall to share with us?
Oh, yeah. Well, when I was jamming a lot back in the, I used to hang out with Junior Cook a lot. And he was a guy that was, he was a beautiful guy, beautiful. And he was just playing with him and listening to him and playing. He was very economical. all the times I played with him and I heard him play, I never heard a bad note. You know what I mean? Not a bad. I mean, every note he played, he was economical. And then on the opposite end is like somebody like Michael Brecker, right?
Yeah.
He played a lot of notes. He was a master of the saxophone, and technique-wise, And then I remember one time talking with him. We're talking about music, and I said to him, I said, Michael, I'm talking about the major scale, playing major scale. I said, man, I'm just playing all the same stuff. He goes, Ralph, you're only limited to your own imagination. That hit me like a ton of bricks, man. I said, whoa. You know what I mean? That was a nice musical moment for me, And then all kind of guys. Clifford Jordan used to give me some, Frank West, But we can go back to Clifford. There's a club called Bradley's. One time I took him home, it's because, it was kind of late. And I took him home, it wasn't that far. I had a car, so I took him. And he said, Ralph, wait a minute. I said, oh, man, it's late. I waited. He was back out from the, back to, I was waiting for him in my car. He went to his pad, came right out. I thought I would have to wait there for a half hour. So he came out and gave me a box of reeds. He said, from Cliff to Ralph. I thought that was very nice. I still have it in that thing right there. Yeah. And what else? And now Frank West. Another band I used to play in that I didn't mention was the Carnegie Hall Jazz Band. I used to play in that band for about 8 years. And me and Frank West were the two tenor players. And, Frank was just a joy to be around. Total swinging dude, great flute player, great saxophone player, and it was funny because we would, well, I'll tell you this story. The band lasted 10 years, but first 2 years I wasn't in it, okay? I was in Santiago, Chile, and at that time it was just the phone machine, and I was always too cheap to check in the phone machine, especially when I was out for like a week or so. But I don't know, something made me. I was sitting in my hotel. I said, I should check my phone machine. So there was about 30 messages. So I'm listening to them. I thought, this is costing me a lot of money, man. So about the 10th message, this is John Faddis. I want you to do the next concert with us, blah, 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 So I kind of that was my audition concert to play. And I got, I played in the band for 8 years. So I got to know Frank, okay? So Frank would he hated playing the clarinet. So I had to play all the clarinet and he played all the flute stuff as far as, the doubles, So one time he sent me I think he did this to a lot of people, but I thought it was hilarious. He sent me this Christmas card with it. His daughter was an artist, so she drew this Santa Claus figure with his face on it, with him lighting like clarinets like this, like some wood, like him lighting the clarinets before, and Merry Christmas, Ralph. That's how much he hated the clarinet. But anyway, stories, wow. This being on the band with all these crazy dudes, all kinds of things happen, But what was I going to say? Oh, the other Frank West song. Let me tell you. So I'm in a band now for 1 week, so we're rehearsing, right? We rehearse Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, then Thursday we would play the gig at Carnegie Hall, right? So we're rehearsing. I had some clarinet stuff to play, right? So, some of it was a little tricky, so we had a little break, so I was practicing a little bit in the saxophone. So Frank walks by me, he goes, Ralph. He goes, what are you doing with that black thing in your mouth? Then that's what I mean. After that, I got the card, Christmas card. So you can reverse it.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Great stories of these
up
guys.
To you now.
Yeah. Well, so I wanted to talk to you, Ralph, about you've led at least 9 different recordings as a leader. Mm-hmm. You mentioned to us about Crisscross. So could you talk to us a little bit about how you get started recording as a leader?
Okay. Well, this guy Michael Weiss, a great piano player, lives in Brooklyn. His first date, he hired me. So it was myself. It was Ray Drummond on bass and Kenny Washington, Michael and Tom Kirkpatrick on trumpet, and myself. And Jerry Tinkins was the head of Crisscross, and a couple years after we did that record, presenting Michael Weiss actually was the name, and 2 years later, I think Jerry called me, asked me if I wanted to do one as a leader. I said, of course, you know. So anyway, so he kind of told me who he wanted to use, and I kind of said, well, you know, I mean, not before he told me who it was. I was thinking, oh man, you know what the, you know, I mean, not that. You know, I just wanted to hear what he had to say. He said he wanted me to use Barry Harris, Kenny Washington, Peter Washington, and Tom Harrell on trumpet. I said, okay. You know, I said, that's cool. Okay. So anyway, so we're doing this first record. It's called Feeling and Dealing. I think Ralph Lalama and his Manhattan All-Stars, I think was the name. And so anyway, so I'm getting ready for this record. You know, I'm the leader, so I have to bring the music. So I wrote a few originals, and you know, it was a quintet, so I had to write out, you know, trumpet parts, rhythm section parts on some of the other tunes we did, plus a couple of my tunes. And then we're there at the studio, and you know, and because of writing all this stuff out, you know, I didn't really play that much the 2 weeks prior. So I'm saying, man, I didn't even practice, man. I haven't played that much, you know. I've been writing all this stuff out, and I'm looking over it, and I see Barry Harris. Right side of me is Tom Harrell, and you know, Kenny and Peter, you know, and I'm saying, man, what am I doing here? You know what I mean? This is like ridiculous, you know. So, and then, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, and we hit. But I'm just saying, that was my first experience as a leader. I said, you know, dumbfounded. You know, Barry Harris, I've been listening to Barry Harris since I was 14 years old, you know. You know what I mean? Yeah. But Tom Harrell, you know, he was just pretty established at that time, you know. He's a little older than me, but he's still, you know, we're around the same age, but he's a little older. But still, he was, you know, he was a cat, you know. And then Kenny and Peter were, you know, kind of my, you know, guy we played together a lot.
Contemporaries, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so now, I mean, you were pretty prolific as a leader. So you must have some future projects on the horizon, maybe as a leader.
Well, I mean, lately you know what I've been doing as a leader lately, playing with my brother. We just played the jazz forum, and my wife, by the way, Nicole. She's a great singer, Nicole Pasternak, Lalama. But anyway, so we do stuff like that as leaders, and my brother and I actually put a few things out, you know, and one called the Lalama Brothers. Lovano's on a couple tunes with Peter and Peter Washington and Kenny Washington, myself, you know, my brother, and Joe plays on a couple tunes. And then we did a duo record with myself and my brother, and then Nicole sings on about. There's a lot of standards we did. The name of the record was Crepuscular Variations on Tunes, on Songs Our Parents Gave Us. Because like I said, my parents were musicians, so we heard all these songs all the time, you know. So we wanted to just do those kind of songs that we used to like to listen to as kids and hear them sing and play, you know.
Yeah.
And then my wife sang on half of the tunes that we played, duo. Okay, but I know that's not the future, but that's kind of recent, you know. And Bob Juice, that's my group, a trio that I play with at Smalls a lot.
Yeah.
You know, and it's usually bass, drums, and tenor. You know, David Wong plays sometimes. Clifford Barbaro, who I've been working with for 30 years, you know. That's enough. Let me say that. In New York, we used to run a jam session for 10 years, me and Clifford, in 3 different places. And it was crazy. It was like, you know, we played trio. That's how Bop Juice formed, actually. We played trio, and we decided to call that trio Bop Juice. We used to sit around and drink a lot because a lot of times we weren't playing. But we'd always do a 45-minute set, and then it was a jam session after that. Pretty popular, actually. Okay, so we did that for about 10 years, and that's how the group formed. So I always played trio like that, which is a difficult thing to do. But lately, I've been using, instead of this bass, I've been using organ, which is a Kiko Suraga. I don't know, she plays with Lou Donaldson and stuff, plays with different people, has her own trio. She's married to Joe Magnarelli. Anyway, so like I've been using her lately with bomb juice. So that's a different thing. That's a different groove, you know.
Yeah, different.
Which I'm actually
thing.
liking, you know. So I've been doing that lately. And future projects, I mean, I don't have anything in mind. I've been like, you know, lately I've been doing a lot of practicing, you know, and you know, I haven't been writing that much, but I've been practicing. So I think it's time that I'm going to start thinking about more writing a little bit more and to get into this future project kind of thing, you know, because you know I've been kind of busy lately, especially this summer. It's been crazy. I've been doing a lot of different things, and you know, and then you know, then school starts, then that takes up some of your time, you know, but. You know, that's really it's hard to say what the future brings. It's going to bring, but I'm thinking about it. It's funny you should ask me that question. Cause for the last couple of years, I wasn't really thinking about it. I was just shedding a lot. You know what I mean?
Yeah, practicing.
But, yeah, without thinking about like, what's my next thing? You know, but I don't know. I'm starting to get that little itch. You know.
Well, we'll definitely be looking forward to that. And so now we'll go into a different part of the video where you might play something for us and show us a few things. But before that, you know, I just wanted to thank you, Ralph, for doing this interview. And
Thank you, Joe.
obviously, people could check you out, you know, at the Vanguard and at Smalls frequently. And